Today we're going to be digging into a ton of stuff. Market conditions, some of the crazy things that are going on around the country, the permit pause that's going on in Cape Coral, and what's Canada doing that might set a precedent for the US sometime in the near future. Today we're going to be talking about moving to Florida. Are you committed or just trying it out? We're getting after that next. Hey everybody, my name's Craig Cunha. I am a real estate agent here in Southwest Florida. And if you've been looking for a channel to tell you a little bit about what it's like to live, play, eat, sleep, and buy real estate on the Gulf Coast, this is the channel for you. Go ahead, subscribe, hit the little bell, make sure you're notified every time, and go ahead and start your MLS search right through our website at ournextfloridahome.com, and that'll get you started. If you've got a question that you need an answer to, you've got to do like everyone else is doing, and you've got to call, text, or email because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast. All right, so moving to Florida, it's not as easy to just try it out these days. I get that. You know, and most of the people that I talk to right now, they want to live in a less restrictive place and somewhere that they can have more of that vacation life feel on the regular. They live in these colder climates. They just want the change, and it's something they say they've been thinking about for a very long time. And between a lot of the remote working opportunities that are out there, the increase in price and the value of their property that gives them more to work with, and just wanting to get on with that part of life that says, hey, we need to be having fun, we need to be enjoying this, not be miserable all the time. So that's what I'm hearing, and I'd like to just help some of you understand a little bit better about what it truly is like living here. All right, so the reality is Florida is definitely still a vacation destination, and those folks that are experiencing that, yeah, they're looking for that on a more regular basis. And I can tell you, living in Florida, you truly can just pick a day to go on vacation and go off and do something fun. There really is no schedule for that. Our weather is fantastic almost all year long. There are some exceptions, obviously. Summertime, there's going to be some downpours in the afternoon that you're going to have to navigate those. But you know when they're coming for the most part, and you know how long they're going to last, and you're still going to have your sunset at the end of the day. The reality of this situation is that most of us in Florida are not from here. We're from somewhere else. So we've made that decision to make the move here years ago, maybe even months ago. And all the people that are coming here, we understand them wanting to do so. And yes, there's a lot of animosity from the people that have been here for a number of years, feeling like, oh, we're full, nobody else can come, all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry that you have to hear that stuff, but I'm not from here either, so I completely get it. You want to come down, you want to try it out, but again, you want to have a full commitment to this venture because things are a little bit different these days. You will be investing a little bit more money to be here, and even if you're going to try to rent, we're going to be talking about that in a minute. Rentals, it's really, truly a huge issue right now because even when you think you have a lease locked down, those rates can change on you, and in some cases, pretty extreme. So you have to take that into consideration when you sign on the dotted line for the commitment, because just knowing that number was what it was when you started, expect it to change. All right, so we're going to go ahead and talk about some of the down and dirty stuff that you may not want to necessarily know about, but as you know, I'm going to tell you everything that I know from my perspective. And one thing about this housing market that we're in right now is it's definitely a difficult thing to navigate. And I'm finding that there are a lot of challenges now for choosing a home location because the restrictions of pricing. The pricing right now, the median pricing for Cape Coral for a single family home is $410,000. Yeah, that's the median. So what I did is I dug in a little bit to different sections of Cape Coral to find out a little bit more about where could I live if I needed to be around that or slightly below it. Because choosing your area now isn't so much just about where I want to live. It could very well come down to where can I afford to live? And affordability, it's different for everyone. We all have different places we put our money, whether it's some people like cars, some people like boats, some people like vacations. So you have to think about where you want to put your money, how you want to spend it, what are the amenities on the home that you know that you absolutely need, not that you think that you've heard that you might want, but what do you actually need? And those will help you make your decision about the price range. Now, as you know from watching a lot of these videos, I'm not a big data person. I want to share numbers as much as possible, but as far as digging into numbers, I'm not an accountant, I'm not any kind of tax advisor, financial advisor. That's not me. So I don't really dig into these numbers so much, but I wanted to show you what I found relating to the pricing around the city. Now keep in mind, these are list prices on these homes. So they very well could go over the 400 median price that we have here. So this is just a guideline to show you there are some opportunities there. And if you can lock them down while they're still at the current price level, then hey, maybe you're going to get ahead of the curve. Now in the Southwest Cape, this is one of the more popular areas because it's generally a little bit newer. There's 96 opportunities of homes in that area, 5 of which are under the 400,000 mark. 5. And they're mostly dry, and the oldest I could find in that group is 1968. So it's definitely has a range of some new stuff, some older stuff, but you have to think if it's going to be newer, it's generally going to be less square footage as well. Because this being one of the most popular areas of Cape Coral, it's going to have a price tag associated with it. Now the next section, I'm getting to the point I almost have to call it South Central Cape, because it is a little bit of Southwest and a little bit of Southeast. And within that area, there were 87 listings and 8 that fell underneath that median $400,000 price. The oldest that I could find in that grouping was 1990. So again, a little bit newer. This is more centralized, so you're going to get much more of a mix of old and new here than you would out in the Southwest. And then the Southeast Cape. This is again a little bit older section. Most of the buildings started in the east side of the city when it first happened. But in this section, there were 99 listings on the market of single-family homes, and 7 were under the 400,000 mark. And again, back to older homes, 1960s. That's what you're going to find there in a lot of cases. It will be mixed. There's been a lot of knockdowns in this area, so new construction is building up in certain parts of it. But this is why it is so important to drive these neighborhoods. You need to feel the differences between these, because as you can see, there are some that are similarly priced and within that median pricing, but until you drive those neighborhoods to see what it feels like, you may not even like them. Now we're going to jump up to the Northwest. Northwest has 136 listings and 10 that were underneath the 400 median price. These homes will generally be a little bit newer because they're doing all the new development up this way. Keep in mind though, well and septic. For much of the properties up there, you're going to be on a well and septic system. We're not going to dive into the differences or the pros and cons of the well and septic this week. I'll try to toss it in next week to give you a little more background on that, but it is a little bit different way of living if you're not familiar with it, and there could be some additional costs that you're going to find that are going to come with that as you go down the road. The last area is the Northeast. There were 67 listings in the Northeast, and believe it or not, under the 400,000 mark, there was one in there that was a 2019 home. In this area, there's also 17 properties under the $400,000 median pricing. So this is going to tell you something. Generally, lower prices could mean less desirable. It's a smaller area as well. So to have that many in one of the smallest areas of the city that are under that 400 price, there's something that's triggering that. Again, this is where you drive the neighborhoods, find out what's around you, see if it's something that feels good. It will be, again, a lot of well and septic, so you have to take that into consideration as part of your decision-making process. Now, I know many of you might be thinking, well, hey, you're talking about Cape Coral, what about Fort Myers? Fort Myers is going to take some time because it is truly so different in so many different parts. The North Fort Myers area is completely different than the South Fort Myers, and East is different than West. So I'm going to have to take a little more time to break that one down. There's certain areas that I personally wouldn't purchase in. So that's how I advise when I'm talking to folks is, hey, you can buy there if you want. I encourage you to spend some time checking it out, driving through the area. But me as my person would not buy there. That's just my opinion. In any case, we're going to be getting after that more next week and diving into Fort Myers and telling a little bit about what to expect there in each of their segments of the city. All right, so I know the question's going to come up. Are people still paying over asking price for these new listings? Yeah. The better and nicer the property is and better the location and the different amenities, if it's in a gated community, whether it has a pool or not, whether they offer a ton of things within the HOAs, because many of these gated communities, actually all gated communities, are going to have an HOA. One of the difficult things for people to break out is if you're in a rental situation. I had a call the other day, and they were the folks were wanting to start in a condo, and they said, hey, we'll just rent it out short term after the fact when we buy our next home. No, you won't. Condos are generally in an HOA, homeowners association, and there are restrictions against rentals unless you get in a resort style building, which would be like the Pink Shell Resort down on Fort Myers Beach. There's another one at the far end of the beach that does the same thing. Very open to the rental policies, but you normally have to go under a management company that they have control of. And they'll give you an idea of what your income will be. You'll get a certain amount of usage, like the Pink Shell Resort. You get 2 weeks in season and 2 weeks out of season that you can use it. The rest of the time it stays in the program, and you don't get the benefit of using it. Now, back on the topic of, are people overpaying? Perfect example. There is a community called Reflection Lakes, just about in the center of Fort Myers, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's segmented from rentals to villas to estate homes and condos. These condos have garages on them, and one of my clients happened to buy one in there for about $230,000 2 years ago. Well, this week somebody listed theirs for $425,000. $425,000 for a condo with a 2-car garage. It's definitely elevated from 2 years ago. But somebody came in, there were multiple offers, they went $50,000 over that asking price. For $475,000, they locked down this condo. Remember, $230 2 years ago, $475 today. So yes, people are going to overpay. They did make a lot of money where they came from, or they had a lot of money starting off, but either way, they're paying for their piece of Florida because they want to start living that life now. The other thing to be careful of with associations is they can set rules, and this is one about that Reflections Lakes place that I just mentioned. They have a restriction against renting in this place until you've lived in it for at least a year. So if you think you're going to buy a place and just start renting it out, check the rules, check the regulations. You don't want to get stuck. Somebody bought a unit in that same community and ended up having to sell it within 3 months because they couldn't hold the bill for where their other home was, as well as this investment. So yeah, they probably lost a little money in that deal, maybe even broke even just with how prices have gone up so quickly. But be very careful to look over those rules and regs before you commit to something. With these elevated prices, and obviously we're hearing about the rates too, and we're now in the 5s for the interest rates on a mortgage, people are saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to have to rent? That's a whole other problem. I heard this week that somebody was literally facing an increase of $900 a month on their rent. Yeah, that wasn't the total rate. That was the increase they were going to take on. That's obnoxious. How can we possibly be doing that? But you know what? Here's the funny thing. There are no restrictions upon how much you can increase your rent. There's no caps. And this is a great thing about purchasing a home. Even with the taxes, people say, yeah, but my taxes will go up, so I'm just going to pay more each year. If you homestead your property here in Florida, there's a 3% cap on those rates increasing on you. So any adjustment they make can't go up more than 3%. So you have that safety net of not being pushed into a much larger payment for something like taxes. So back on the rental part of it, there are literally people that were retired that are now being forced to go back to work because their rent is being increased at these astronomical rates. $1,000 change year over year is something a lot of people probably can't just throw into their budget, let alone if you're on retirement and now you're on a fixed income. So definitely becoming a little bit more of a problem, especially for those folks that are determined to either be renting or that's just what their situation has them doing. But if it at all possible, if you are considering purchasing a home and it's affordable, lock it in while you can. 5% is only high for the people that were looking at the 2.875 and the 3.5 before. But if you look back in history and we had double-digit interest rates, 5% is still a steal. And if you made a lot of money on the sale of your home back home, it's really a wash. So make some decisions, get things going. We do have some homes on the market again that are in that more affordable range, but as you can see, they continue to escalate, and the nicer the area, the nicer the community, the higher the price. New construction and remodeling just took a hit this week. What I mean by that is we have what Cape Coral's calling the permit pause. They changed the computer system that handles all these permit requests. A lot of things are done online. You could show up at the office and do it that way. But in changing this system, there's apparently a lot of bugs in it and a lot of permits that are sitting there now. So they're taking 9 days off. Literally no more permits are being accepted. They're going through everything that's in the records, trying to clear it all up. So for 9 days, whatever project you're trying to do or whatever home you want to start construction on, you're not submitting anything. Just another one of the delays that we're experiencing here in Cape Coral amid this building craze. Another thing that's happening with this building craze is no electricity. Well, what do you mean no electricity? LCEC, they're saying that they're experiencing more problems because of the supply shortages, even the worker shortages. We have to expand our service to different areas of the Cape that haven't been built yet. So when they're expanding this stuff, they need the supplies, they need the labor force to do this. They don't have it. Some areas they're thinking they might not even get to for a year. So it's affecting even the electrical service. And we need to expand it also because the number of people that are going on the grid, it's going to start to overload the system. So there's a lot of things going on here that are all associated with these shortages and these delays and the problems that we're having around the country. But that's just another one that we're experiencing here in the Cape. Well, one thing we're not experiencing is what Canada is experiencing, and they could be setting the tone for what could happen here. Just depends on the powers that be and how this will transfer over. But Canada will not allow any foreigners to purchase properties in their country for the next 2 years. That's right. So if you're thinking you're going to buy a place in Canada and you have a residence or you are a citizen here in the States, you will not be buying a place in Canada for 2 years. That's their way to control what's going on in their market. They're seeing the same thing, limited supply, higher prices. It's getting out of control for the people that actually live there. So that was their solution. Will it take hold in the US? I don't know. We have so many corporations and individuals acting as corporations that are buying up these properties. I don't know how they could possibly do it. That's just an example of how some people are dealing with these extremes. All right, something else that started up this week. There are now multiple rent-to-own purchase plans that are out there with these large corporations. Now, Home Partners is one that I have done some work with a few years ago, and I did help clients secure properties. And now seeing that there's 3 of them that are rather large, Divvy is one of them, and Dream America is another one, just like Home Partners. So these 3 large corporations that are rent to own, their process is that you get qualified with them, you find a realtor, you find the home, they'll buy the home for you, you rent it from them until the point of either you're done renting and want to move on, or you want to purchase the home from them. All 3 work very similarly. There might be small changes amid the 3, but interesting fact, and part of the reason why I did the search for the median price in Cape Coral is they have a price limit. You can't get a home in that program for over $400,000. So you already heard the numbers that are under $400,000, and this is going to greatly affect people in that program. So yes, the rent to own sounds great on the surface, but it's very limited, especially for our area. Now, within this, you still have to qualify. There are job qualifications. There's a monetary deposit that needs to be made. They do background checks. They're doing all these things to make sure they have a good, solid renter in there. Your rental history is going to be taken into consideration. So all these hoops need to be jumped through. And then, my experience with Home Partners is we had to find a house, and the offer they made on it, it doesn't have to be asking price. I've had some of them come in $15,000, $20,000 under asking price. So it's going to be a whole bunch of challenges all on its own, but there are 3 major corporations playing this in this pool right now. It could be good for an area like Lehigh Acres, which we'll get after some of their numbers here in the coming weeks too. Their numbers are a bit lower than you're going to find in Cape Coral and Fort Myers, but this is just another solution they're trying to come up with for this housing market issue that we're seeing. And will it take hold? Will it work out? It's too early to see, but there are other options out there. Now, here in Florida, I've talked numerous times about the breezes that are in the air, right? Well, I'm embarking on a new venture for my property to add fencing. But one of my big things about this fencing is airflow. If I put up the privacy fence 6 feet high, solid vinyl, it's going to block my airflow. Not feeling that. So there's other options for this. Obviously chain link, then there's the aluminum rod type of fence, and those allow air through, but they're not as private. So you could do what my neighbor did, and you put some vegetation, some bushes, some trees, whatever it is, across the fence line to give that little bit of a buffer there and still allow the airflow. The other thing is the mesh that they put on the baseball fields where my son plays. There's this kind of somewhat obscured mesh that ties to the fence that lets the air flow somewhat, but still gives some peace. So these are some different things you have to consider. If you're in an HOA, know that you most likely are going to have issues with fencing, especially if you live on a lake or any kind of water. They don't want you restricting the view for the neighbors. Even if you're going to be on a Gulf access canal, there are rules about how to lay out the fence. So make sure that you're checking all that stuff out when you're going through the process to make sure it fits your needs. Speaking of canals, we're going to talk about a different type of canal. Our freshwater canals right now, we're in dire need of water. You might have heard me talk about it the other week. We are about 4 inches behind in certain areas of Southwest Florida for this time of year. That's putting a severe demand on the freshwater resources. And I went to my client's home the other day to do a video for him. He's building a house, and the canal was so ridiculously low. Boats were sitting basically on the sand or mud or whatever it is at the bottom of that canal. They couldn't go anywhere if they wanted to. I don't even think you could take a kayak up and down some of these canals right now. This is why the project to have water piped over from Fort Myers into our system was so important to have done. And it's met a lot of negativity from the people that are going to experience the construction. But on the back side of it, we kind of need this to happen. If we're not going to have rain for months on end, this is what's going to happen to our canal system. And it could eventually affect those people on the wells up in the Northwest. Now, fun fact, if you're a boater and you have a boat lift, you're going to want to make sure that you find a way to either maintain the motors under the covers or block them off, because the swallows, the birds, love to get up inside there, build a nest. And then what happens is when you go to run the thing, you're either crushing up a bird or you got a nest all jammed up in the gears. So if you're seasonal especially, because that leaves them plenty of time to get up in there and build it, you're going to definitely want to be checking that kind of thing out. If you use it on a regular basis, it's highly unlikely they'll be able to have the time to do that. But what is regularly? Some people are only using their boat once or twice a month. Unfortunately, I'm guilty of that recently just because of the weather, but summer's coming up. We're going to be getting after that. But keep in mind, there are different things that will happen with the birds and your not only lifts, motors, and lift covers, but up inside the canopies. If you put a canopy over your boat, they love to nest in there as well. So you're going to go ahead and look up some tack strips. Maybe get one of the owl scare kits. There's also this electrical kind of setup that'll give them a little shock when they land. So there's different ways to handle this. I guess you pick your poison which way you want to do it, but birds could become a problem for you if you have a Gulf access canal property with a dock and lift. These are realities that could affect you. The other thing I'm hearing a lot of people talking about lately is allergies. Yeah, it's been nuts. Even the news is reporting, and my phone is giving me, on WeatherBug, it's giving me pollen alerts, whether it's mid to high level, what types they are, whether it's tree pollen, whether it's whatever out there. I don't know. There's so many different types of allergens. In any case, allergies are really strong right now. A lot of people complaining about it. So just because they're hacking and coughing doesn't mean they have COVID. They could just have allergies. All right, so that's a little bit more about moving to Florida. Are you committed or are you just trying it out? These are some of the things that you're going to experience. I've got a lot more to talk about and even more in these videos. So if you want to know more, check out the videos. And if you have a specific question for me that you need answers to, you've got to call, text, or email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.